Meeting called to order. I want to say thank you to everybody for coming. I know some of you drove from distances further away, and so we do appreciate you coming. The purpose of the meeting is, as is stated in the agenda, was to sit and discuss with Whitestone Valley Construction, Demolition, Landfill. Just to kind of give a little more detail of the way we see the flow of the meeting going. I'll kind of explain that a tiny bit, and then in the agenda, once we kind of get to the end of that portion, there is a general comments phase for anyone in the public that has general comments or anything that got left out. So our intent for the purpose is to kind of do a recap in the opening, to recap kind of what led us to be here talking. Because both commissioners are here, it has to be in the form of an open meeting because of, we can start open meetings rules because we're a quorum of the board. So the reason for the purpose, we debated on setting it up more like a conference room where we would all be sitting close, but between COVID and technology for the screens and for everything else, we kind of left it the way that we've always done for a call meeting. And wanted to explain that. But once we kind of go through an opening, we'll open the floor up to you guys. And however y'all want to go forward with that, and then kind of discuss potential solutions that we could go through and a path forward for both the county and for you guys as well. Then we'll open that up at that point for general comments. So just kind of give a more detailed agenda as to the flow of the intent of how we're going to go. I think in opening, it's when anytime there's commercial interest or business interest that comes into a clash with public health concerns, public safety concerns, whether that be through complaint driven or verified, we as the Board of Commissioners, I believe, have a duty from our oath, and we're duty bound to try to act and do what we can. I think that's kind of what led us to any action that was there, just to kind of give that as an overview to what brought us here. The original December 21st meeting that the Board of Commissioners where a closure order was there following the presentation. I know that we've already met and discussed kind of how that went, but it followed the aftermath of a pretty substantial fire. I would categorize it as 3 days long, so a major fire that had occurred. Several photographs were provided to the Board of Commissioners by the public safety responders, the fire marshal, and other first responders, showing the state and the conditions. So it led us to having that call meeting where action was taken to close that. It was based off of a combination of different factors, citizen complaints. The complaints were on the fire. There were some that were concerned. There were also complaints that were driven from the odor from within the area. And there were quite a few. Then there was the fire that occurred at the end of November was the 7th 911 call that we'd actually received that was recorded through 911 where the fire department was called to respond in 2021. There were some additional ones in 2020, but it was the 7th 911 that had called that was that final day. As we had discussed before, we'd also had compliance relation issues in terms of tonnage fees and things of that nature. Business licenses lapsing, permit expiration prior to renewal. So all of those factors combined led to the December 21st meeting that led to the order for the closure to take place. The purpose, again, is of having a call meeting today, and I know that we've gone back and forth via attorneys and different conversations as to how we can mitigate a way to move forward, how we can mitigate a way to ease the public's concerns, to ease some of the comments and the questions that we're receiving, and the risk of any danger that's there, to make sure that as we move forward that those things have all been addressed and they've been concerned. I think that the photograph on the screen, and it's there kind of intentional because we want to show that I think that photograph is indicative that I do believe there's a path forward. That was something that someone had sent us a week ago, showing that everything is covered, that there has been a substantial amount of work that's taken place over the last several weeks on site. So it's displayed to kind of indicate that we really believe that shows us a good path forward. It shows us that there's a lot of work that's been done on that particular one. Since the closure, or since the order for closure, there has been the payment of the delinquent tonnage fees has been received. Permission for activities within the landfill to monitor any hazardous conditions and mitigate hazards was granted. The issuance of a limited purpose land disturbing permit to allow the landfill to implement fire mitigation steps for moving dirt. the issuance of a limited purpose business license to allow any dispatching for affiliated transportation companies to conduct activities has taken place as well. During that time, we've also met with the EPD. We went to Atlanta and had a meeting with their director of operations and several staff to just kind of go through and show them what we had, what we were concerned with, to kind of have that discussion back and forth with them as well, to kind of articulate types of waste, handling waste, those types of things with them. We did confirm a shared view with the EPD regarding the importance of regulating for the concerns of the citizens and protecting the people and the environment, and received an acknowledgement from the EPD that the county is authorized under state law and under the Georgia administrative rules to regulate by ordinance any facilities, and can impose even more strict regulations as long as they're not in conflict with those regulations of the EPD. So we did sit down and have that conversation with them to try to go through and just gain an understanding that we're both on the same page while we're there. But I think that we reached, through mutual communication, the ability to come in here today to sit down and meet. I do think that the image that's behind you, though, is a drastic contrast, and the next one's not. It was one that was used in the original presentation. But the photograph that was taken from the individuals while they were there on site, the days of the fire, show the trash and the open face that was there compared to what it is today. So the only reason I show the contrast of the two images side by side is to show we do believe that there has been substantial effort made on behalf of Whitestone Valley to improve the conditions of what is there as well. I believe that from the county standpoint, when we take a look at it, the feasibility of a resolution to try to come together from our standpoint 100% is the public health and public safety. Those are our two biggest concerns, is the complaints that we've received from citizens and the potential for fire. That's as I started in the opening, that's the most important issue that we've got, and everything that we're trying to do is based on those two things alone. Is to kind of take a look, as we looked at moving forward, at the causes of the fire, how they can be carefully managed to minimize any future fires and any frequency of those fires and the severity of those fires. We wanted to try to get to a point where we could talk about the causes of the odors, and to carefully manage to minimize the odors that have occurred, whether it be in frequency or the scope and the magnitude of those. Many of the citizens have expressed concerns about groundwater. That was one of the conversations that we had with EPD to determine what's in place there. So that's one of those main concerns that several of the neighbors that are on wells that live in the area have expressed to us, significant concern of an unlined C&D landfill as far as what type of material is in there. We want to ensure that prohibited materials are not accepted, and that what those steps are, and I think that that's in our back and forth with emails being clearly stated, and any appropriate mixing of those items and what steps are in place to try to remove those from being able to come in. And also a compliance with requirements in county ordinances to be looked at, and I guess respected would be the best word, that it's not just the state that limits their EPD standards, but each county has an obligation to their citizens to enforce their ordinances. Otherwise, we're not doing our job to protect the individuals that we're here to serve. So I do believe that that's kind of our objective today, is to kind of discuss those points, to try to find where we can find some common ground there, and to explore the potential solutions. I do believe that, representatives, that you guys will have an opportunity to kind of speak and discuss what you have done and what the potentials are for moving forward and going from there, so that we can kind of have a little back and forth dialogue. So I know it's a long opening to kind of give a recap of the position of the county and of what led us to be here, but that is in a nutshell our overall perspective. And I don't know if Mr. Cash or Mr. Norton, whoever, I'd like to just open the floor for you guys to give it over to you and kind of let you make any comment, statements, or whatever you would like to do.
Well, Mr. Cash, this is Bob Norman, for the record. I'm an attorney for Macon, do a lot of solid waste work, and I've worked with these folks before. You've met Eric Cash and Carson Cash, all of you, I think. I'll just start out. I'm not gonna rehash everything that I've discussed and communicated with Mr. Landrum about, or the things we filed in magistrate court or the letters to Mr. Landrum. I mean, the fire did occur. At the time, the landfill was in compliance and full with its solid waste handling permit from the state, which all of the conditions of that permit, the conditions in the solid waste rules are designed to protect the public health and safety, obviously. They were in compliance. The fire did occur. There was a larger than normal, slightly larger than normal working phase, and I'll let Mr. Cash explain why that was. Fires do occur in C&D landfills, which is why the rules deal with fire protection, and they were in compliance with the fire protection rule and the condition in their permit and their design and operation plan for the landfill at the time of the fire. It was unfortunate. It did get put out, but it then rekindled a couple of different times over those 3 days. And then after that, it was contained and put out permanently as of about December 1st, or really November 30. And yes, smoke continued to smolder for a few days after that. They continued to put more dirt on it over that period of time, and finally it all resolved. They've done everything in good faith to, once they received, and we understand the county has to enforce its ordinances when they're valid ordinances and public health related ordinances. They've done everything they could in good faith, I think you would acknowledge, to address all the matters that were raised in the resolution adopted by you on December 21st. We've submitted the compliance plan that was requested through Mr. Landrum, and have every intention and good faith complying with everything going forward, as long as it's legally valid requirements and legally valid ordinances. We certainly intend to comply, and want to have a good working relationship with the county. That's what we've been trying to have this meeting and achieve that for the last month now, and we do appreciate all of y'all working to get the green energy transport business license back in place, and the LDP, the land disturbance permit, so that we could continue to maintain the landfill properly as you see in the photo. But we still have these issues with the actual operation business license. We've been out of business and have complied with that fully. We complied with the compliance with the stop work order. We understand that. We got the fire contained under control, more cover material, tons of cover material. And then we got the resolution and the citations and importantly, the business license revocation. We've not been able to operate since December the 21st. And that's really putting a extreme financial burden on the company, which operates the landfill, renewable energy resources. We really need to work through that and get that resolved as soon as possible. But we have every intention of working with the county in every reasonable way we can. And Mr. Cash will tell you that. I won't keep talking here. And that's why we want to have this meeting and work through this, resolve it, move forward on an amicable, good working relationship basis, hopefully. That's our goal, and that's our hope.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, thanks for having us here today. And the best I can do is just say thanks for allowing us to continue to correct the issues that we've had with the fires, and we have done the best we could under the operating agreement or the operating plan that we have with the state, that we're abiding by and doing the things that we conduct business as there. The site is unique in such a way, the way it's constructed and designed, that we had to build a road to the right side of the area we were working at now, which is a little different than the picture that you show now. But the entrances were, we had to create a new road, and that's why we were coming around to the side of the large open area. We were having to build the landfill and the slope out of the road of trash, and that's where we had areas that we were building with trash, and that's the way it's designed to build. We did the best we could do with what we've done. We've always had dirt when we've had it available. The fires to me are a little unique. I think there's something that didn't happen during the course of the business operation. Again, it's, you know, something if it was happened during normal business hours, we would have been there and addressed it at the time. So I apologize for the fire department having to come out, and I apologize for that. But at times you do run into those things. We did the best we could with what we had to work with, and today I feel like that, you know, we're ready to open up. I think we've addressed everything that y'all have raised in the citations, and I'm here today to hopefully get to that point.
I appreciate it very much. I do have, and I kind of took over and started talking. Anytime you want to bump my arm or just stick over me, I'm not trying to talk over you when I'm going through, if you have questions or anything as we go forward. I do think that there's a few points that we want to kind of go through and just to try to, and we went through where you submitted your plan that was addressing the citations and addressing what was put in place. One, and I'll start from I'll start from the compliance side. I know that when we met previously, you mentioned that we're dealing with you at this point, not the other individuals that we had dealt with in the past. And they had a previous COO that was referenced multiple times throughout the resolution. That was the one that he came in and I'm trying to figure out the correct way to phrase this, but each time we would ask a question, we would get a different story. So if he came in and somebody would ask about the tonnage fees, he would talk about how equipment was being refinanced in order to pay the tonnage fees. The next time it was we had to make payroll, we couldn't pay a tonnage fee because of the payroll. And I understand from a clear definition in the state's permit guidelines, those are to be kept in a separate side. Each time we would deal with him, I don't know, is that still who's going to be operating moving forward, or is there someone else that the county will be working with and dealing with directly, or?
He's no longer with this company any longer, and you'll be dealing with me going forward. And we also have our operators that's at the site as well. So who are you referring to exactly?
Mr. Murphy.
Yeah, he's no longer with the company any longer.
Okay.
As far as the site work and operators at the site, we're all state certified as far as landfill operators, and the crew's been there for a number of years. And again, the site's been there close to 15 years or so. You know, so the group of people we have been there for quite some time, and they know what they're doing on site. And hopefully, y'all see that that's the case.
Okay. As far as procedurally, when things do come in, and I know that when you came in and spoke and looking at it, when you have construction dumpsters that people put other items into, by statute, there's procedures by the permit to prevent municipal waste from coming into the landfill. Are there different things that are going to be done moving forward to prevent? And I'm going to go back to the picture just as a quick reference, and I'm not trying to do it to pick, but there was a significant amount. I mean, if I go to the fire picture, for instance, the mattresses that were on fire that showed up in the resolution pack, those items that typically would be pulled out of the stack. And I know from your plan for moving forward, it was clearly articulated that those things will be pulled out to put in. What I guess assurance is there that it will be done in a way to where these items are not making it into the working phase? If that, is there different operations for when the things are checked as they come in?
You know, to answer the mattresses, as far as the mattresses, I believe the state's guidelines, and that's what we follow. If you tear down a house and the mattresses are in the house, and that's, you know, regulated C&D or accepted as C&D disposal. So that's the way we address it. If you see a mattress out there that it came through a construction demolition part of a home, or to the definition of that. As far as the other way you can get them that we turn away loads is if you get them from a thrift store or a Goodwill's department store. That is not C&D. So the mattresses are coming in through C&D, and as far as I'm concerned, are approved waste disposal. The state's guidelines, I don't know what the Pickens County guidelines are going forward, but if you can share that with me, your concerns, I'm here to discuss that with you. If that's
well, we're just, our hope is to try to find a way that we can prevent these from, and I'll go back to the odor. The odor, I think, is a classic example. Typically, the odor comes from decomposed material, which isn't necessarily as common in a C&D as it would be in a landfill. We have one homeowner that lives across the street just bought a $700,000 home last year, and actually filed an open records request with our office to find out what kind of permits were there, so that he understood that he wasn't buying across the street from a municipal waste landfill. And based on it being an ERT and C&D were the two landfills that were there, was willing to make the investment. Now his complaint is the odor is so strong he can't go outside and enjoy. And he's one of few, but it's one example that has came up. And that's what we're trying to determine as far as what steps are preventing some of these decomposing materials to make it through whenever, what kind of checks are in place.
As far as decomposing, I mean, to me, that's the definition for municipal solid waste, and that's not what we take at the facility. It's construction, demolition, and that, as far as the odor, I don't know if it's our odor or not. It might be a chicken house. I don't know what odor it is necessarily, but, we'll do our best to follow the guidelines that the state requires us to cover monthly, and that's what our design operational plan states currently. So I'm open to discuss whatever else it is we do. Again, like I said, we were constructing the site. We're building a new road around to access the top is the way the design operation plan is. There was probably more open than it should have been, but we were not outside of the third day closing the way the permit goes as far as soil cover.
Chairman, you asked about waste. We've addressed the tires. I don't know if you want us to address that again. They're addressed in the plan, but that's always been the way tires have been handled in there. It's permitted to receive the tires because you're going to get some in C&D waste. But the plan is it doesn't take tires. It can't take tires. We know that. It's on our website, their website. And we remove the tires whenever we see them. We collect them. They're hauled off per the ordinance. I know this covered in the ordinance. It really follows the ordinance. They've been doing that before this, and I know some officials saw some tires out there. They must have just, been there recently and not pulled yet, but that's the procedure, and that's what we follow under our state permit, and then it's carried by a manifest by authorized tire hauler to an authorized facility. So tires are not accepted for disposal in the landfill.
Is there any other municipal that's pulled out that comes in? Is there a procedure in place for anything that comes in through a dumpster or from a transfer station that is fine?
If we need to, I mean, just from time to time, you may see something with a tire or something that's unacceptable, but we do not have the permit to dispose of it there. So we inspect the loads, but we're not taking MSW there at the facility.
Right, but is there anybody checking? So if I clean out my garage at my house and I load up my pickup truck and I mix waste and just everything in the truck, is there somebody looking to look over what's coming in those situations to determine that it's not what's being dumped into?
I mean, the operators are there. I mean, the operators that work there every day are looking at what's in the load, yes.
Okay. You mentioned the website. And that's been one of our primary sources of kind of gathering information, and some, and I know if you've looked through the resolution, you've seen it referenced a few times, and a review on the Blairsville transfer station immediately popped up that this place now accepts bagged household trash to be paid for, but it's cheap and they'll take it. So it's when we see things like that, it kind of makes us wonder, is that what's coming to the landfill? Is that what's creating this odor if household trash is being put into the transfer stations, or is it being monitored at the transfer stations as well?
Excuse me, I don't understand your question exactly.
A citizen reviewing the website actually put a comment that was found online that stated that they were now at the Sugar Creek location now accepting household bag trash. It has to be paid for at the transfer station.
Okay, well that's Fannin County, not in.
I'm sorry, Fannin, not yeah.
Yes, I didn't understand that. Yes, I can clarify that for you.
Yeah.
If the transfer station can take MSW as well as C&D, and we take it to whatever location we need to, whether it's C&D disposal or it's MSW disposal.
So you have those separated out?
We have them separated out, or we mix them and take them all to the MSW facility that we take it to.
Okay, and that's what we were just trying to clarify, because
I'm glad
when you're basing it off of one comment, it's hard without asking clarification.
I'm glad you asked, because so each location is unique, and it also abides by whatever the area we're in, so I'm glad we clarified that.
Okay.
That's a Fannin County location.
Looking through some notes here. So note in your document that you sent over to us on the 24th, basically your plans for moving forward that you guys had sent over with how to address the ordinance violations. There was a reference in there, instead of just a municipal waste, it was sanitary municipal solid waste. Is there a different definition that y'all were utilizing that as far as that you will not accept specifically sanitary municipal solid waste, or was that intended to be just municipal waste in general?
MSW used to be called sanitary waste. It doesn't take MSW, the permit doesn't allow it to take municipal solid waste, only construction and demolition waste, none of which is considered sanitary waste.
Okay. And it's just clarifying the language
Yeah, that is confusing. I didn't realize it said that, but it doesn't take municipal solid waste, sanitary or otherwise.
Okay.
Let me say this, construction and demolition waste is a category, technically, in the law of municipal solid waste. But we can only take construction and demolition waste materials, which excludes anything else that's MSW.
Okay.
I hope that makes sense.
And I know this won't necessarily be a point for today, but I'd rather ask it while we're in the room, and then we can let everybody kind of negotiate that back and forth later. Would you guys be willing, we mentioned the covering, that it's a 30-day minimum, but if we do have a significant number of complaints that we're already receiving on odor and things of that nature coming from the landfill, would you be willing to commit to the county for a more stringent? So if we came to an agreement that stated every 2 weeks, every 14 days, every whatever that number ended up becoming, to have a more frequent covering to help reduce the fire potential and reduce the potential for odor. And the reason I say that from an agreement standpoint is so that we can move at a faster pace. Because if we go toward trying to change our ordinance in the process of doing this, I don't know if you've seen the wheels of justice, but the wheels of government in changing a law or an ordinance is slower than justice for sure. So I don't want to drag that out. I'd rather be able to find it where it would be an agreed upon criteria that we looked at in the way to move forward as to having a more frequent covering. That way we've mitigated that risk to a greater.
You know, I'm here to work with the county. I don't want to be a nuisance by no means. Yes, we'll do whatever we can to be, the best we can to deal with the waste as we need to. So I'm open to discussing that if it helps with what we need to do to continue on. One
of the other areas that we had discussed in terms of moving forward, and I know that C&D landfills are inspected twice a year by the state, and sometimes that consists of a drive around. It doesn't necessarily consist of kind of getting out and checking some different things. And in order for us to be able to monitor from a county ordinance standpoint, and one of the other points that we'd like to try to make sure is that we had access to where even if we were to contract with or to have someone else just to come and verify, not to a different set of rules, but then with notice that we provide 24 hours notice to have somebody to be able to come out and inspect periodically throughout the year, and wanting to see if that's a term that you guys would be willing to. Again,
I want to work with the county, and
okay.
We're open, and anything within reason, we're here to serve. So I'm not opposed to that by no means.
What our intent is from the county's perspective, beyond moving forward today, and I don't plan on this being a slow process. This is something I think can move fairly quickly. I don't know, we may send something over that y'all want to take more time to respond back to us, but Ms. Hell is here, Ms. Kimberly Hell is here, and we've kind of retained her to help with facilitating a negotiation between the two parties to try to make sure that we find common ground, that we find an agreement. We've researched and found where some other counties have kind of worked on private agreements between landfills and the county directly to try to follow a format like that. So what our intent would be, and we would intend to be able to have something in your hand hopefully by Friday, so that we'd be looking at it coming in a fairly quick fashion. would be a first draft or our first stab at, here's an agreement we would like to put in your hands to come to terms with, to be able to get things to move forward, and then you guys would respond in kind. We would then, if it's an agreement that has to be signed on, we would have to call an emergency, which would mean a 24-hour notice. So once both Mr. Norman and Ms. Hell have came to terms or came to an agreement back and forth and are good, then we could call a called meeting for the following day and just call it as an emergency meeting to where it could then be voted on and move forward. So I think that there is a fast pass forward. It does, I'm sure that there may be things that we ask for that you have questions about, and there may be vice versa. So we're not looking at trying to prolong. We're not trying to push this out further than it has to be. And like I said, the image that we're showing, I think, is the best path that I can show that over the 6 weeks that you guys have stepped up and started to cover. Because if we'd have took a picture similar week one, it would have shown it different. We just didn't take one from that angle. It would have shown it very different because you could see the face from the roadway. So as far as what I've got, that's my portion. I don't know, Mr. Barnes, do you have anything? Yeah. Do you guys have anything before I open it up for any comments?
Well, I mean, we're here to talk in good faith. We've been trying to do this for several weeks, and we're glad to finally get here to be able to have this conversation. But again, the ratification of the business permit has really been a serious burden on them for a month now, over a month, well over a month. And we're happy to negotiate, but we still take the position that the ratification of the business license was not justified and not legally valid. And so we need to have some idea of when we can, I mean, I understand you have leverage because you've revoked the business license.
Right.
But we're here in good faith, and we know and believe that y'all are in good faith. But we need to be able to get back in business.
Right.
Even while we're negotiating this, and I know you say we can do this quickly, and maybe we can, but there's no assurance of that. And every day that goes by, it's a serious problem.
Right. I understand your position, and I'm not trying to, but I don't feel comfortable with us before we all look at it and say that we're all in good terms. That's why I say we're going to move as fast as we can to have a document in your hands within the next 2 days. You referenced the month, and I understand that. I know that we met, I believe, on the 29th, or I may be wrong with that date, but very end of December.
I think it was, yes.
And stated then, as soon as we have a written plan, we'll sit down and be able to go, because I know Mr. Cash had asked, can we meet next week? And I said, we need to see something in writing first on how to address these things. That didn't come until last week. And so you can kind of see the pace that we're moving at. As soon as we got it, we scheduled a meeting as fast as we could get that to go forward to get here today. So we're not trying to drag our feet, but that was that first step, is that we want to see that plan.
That, I mean, we're here where we are today, but I didn't feel like I could leave that unsaid.
Yeah.
That the urgency of.
Yeah. And that's why I say we don't plan on dragging our feet, and that's one reason that we've reached out to Ms. Hell. We know that this is a field that she's worked in, and have spoke with quite a few others that have worked closely with her, that she's wanting to move quick.
Yeah,
and she's
and I
wanting to
work
try to
with
get
Ms.
something.
Hale. That's what I know. I understand.
And just one thing, I guess just to clarify or clear up a little bit. We met on the 29th of December. I don't think that we understood that you actually wanted us to submit anything to you then, or, when I asked about submitting a plan. So I think there just might have been a little bit of miscommunication on each side, because we are willing to work with you. So I don't want you to think that us not sending you something was that we're not willing to work with you. I think we took it more as if we had something to send you at that time to send it, but we didn't pick up that you were requesting us to be sent a plan.
I understand confusion, and I could play back audio to show where that was the final 3 things that were said at the end of the meeting, and I'm not wanting to try to. I'm just pointing out that we weren't trying to postpone sitting down and meeting. It was something that I made the comment about having counsel and needing our counsel to be able to review it. So if you could submit in writing your plan to be able to come in compliance with the ordinances, we'll set up something at that point in time. And so I doubted it whenever you first had reached out and kind of commented that y'all didn't understand it, so went back to check and you know, it was one of those things that we're trying to make sure we're moving forward. We're not trying to drag it out. We're not trying to move forward, but we've got to make sure that the property owners and the businesses nearby that are expressing their concern, that we fight, that we stand, you know, that we look out for their interest or hurt as well.
My intention was simply to point out that
Yeah.
that the financial losses are mounting, and it costs a lot to run a landfill the proper way.
Right. So at this time, I'll open it up to any general comments, as is mandatory for any open meeting. Anybody that has any comments that they'd like to make?
I do, if nobody else does. First of all, that's not a chicken house. The house you mentioned, the fellow that, by the way, Jason came to see you, they bought the house from me. I lived there 2 years. It did not smell at all for those 2 years. Not one, hand on the Bible, never smelled a single thing. And I was asked about that when Jason decided to buy the house. And I told him the truth, I never smelled a single thing. I just came by there. It still smells. You didn't put enough dirt on it yet to kill that smell. I own a business. I understand we have 70 employees. We generate $300,000 in sales tax for the state. Part of it comes to the county. And I don't want to be known as the place next to the place that smells like a septic tank. And I don't know what's changed there. You said 15 years it's been there. I've owned my property there for 20. It started out as an inert landfill, and it didn't smell like anything. I don't know when it changed to C&D. I know it was years ago, but nobody asked me what I thought. I didn't go to a meeting. There wasn't any zoning that I know about. Nobody mentioned it to us anyway. And by the way, the reason Jason's not here today, he texted me and told me this meeting was today. He tested yesterday morning. Yesterday afternoon, he texted me and told me that he had tested positive, so he couldn't be here. And I've got 6 messages on my phone as I was walking in telling me things to bring up while I was here. I'm here mainly on his behalf because he bought that house from me, and I feel obligated, and I've apologized to him because of that smell affecting his house. I would have an attorney. I wouldn't be here. I'd have an attorney. I'd have George. Mr. Wiegand would be on my side trying to get compensated. What do you think that might cost the value of the tax, of that, the property value of the tax bill on his house? Smelling like a rotten egg, and it smells like that. When I go by there, it gets in my truck. Here's the thing, I sell food for a living. I've got 150 seats outside. In good weather, they get full. And it takes it, so I can pay my bills and my employees. But when you're coming south, that smell gets in your car. It's still in there when you go by my front door. I don't know any normal human being that would consider that to be appetizing. To be heading south, smell that, they're gonna keep going. Because why would you want to stop and smell that? I don't know the science. I don't know why all of a sudden, but I lived in that house 2 years. I've only been out of it 2 years. So in the last 2 years, something major has changed there. I don't know if it's household trash. I don't know what it is, but I'll promise you, I'm not doing anything on my property to negatively affect your property value. And I certainly think that should be a two-way street. I don't think anybody ought to do anything on their property that affects their neighbor, no matter what. What should be done, what can be done, I don't know, but right now, it still smells. It's not quite as bad as it was, but it changes with weather conditions. It might be as bad tomorrow, I don't know. But I just don't want, I was under the impression that it could be only county stuff brought there anyway. Didn't you tell me that?
One of the ordinances that was put forth was, trying to remember the exact terminology of how it is, but basically limiting any input as to what was there.
I haven't heard you say anything about that today, though.
It has not, and Mr. Norman has brought to our attention several cases that have went to the Supreme Court since that particular time. So we've been trying to review that particular ordinance to determine whether it's valid or if it's not valid, if we can enforce it or if we can't enforce it. That it has been challenged to all the way to the highest court.
Well, in talking about inspecting stuff that comes on, I can't swear, I've never been on the property. Although I did own, I sold to Melvin Puckett, the property adjacent to the property line there. But I've never actually been on their property. I'm having a fear of nails, so I don't want to go on property that's got stuff on it. But I've had employees tell me that all you had to do was give the person that, as you came in, a $20 bill and you could dump anything you wanted. Now, I haven't seen that happen. It hadn't happened for me. I haven't tried to. We actually spend $25,200 is what we spent last year to get our dumpsters picked up. And here they are dumping stuff comparable from who knows where. And yet I gotta pay that to get it hauled off to South Georgia or wherever else, so I don't have to live with my own trash. Now I'm living with somebody else's. I'm telling you, if I ever get that smell on my property, and I'm right next door, if it ever happens, I'll do whatever it takes to get it to stop. Because that's just not, I've been there 14 years in business, 14 years in that business. I've been there for 20 in business. My wife and I, we've missed 6 days in 14 years that we were both not in, neither of us were in that building 6 times in 14 years, 6 days in 14 years. We're very serious about it. It's all I've got. That's my retirement. It's going to get me old if I get old. And I don't want to be known as a place next to the dump. And used to be, nobody knew what was there. You couldn't see it and you couldn't smell it. Something's changed. I don't know who, where, when, or how, but something's changed. When Leon used to run it, and he used to come in probably 3 or 4 days a week to eat with us. Couldn't have been a nicer fellow. About 3 months ago, he came by with a business card and gave it to my wife and said, if y'all have anything, any needs, I forget what I don't know how, I didn't hear it, so I don't know how he worded it, but let her know that she needed to call him if we had any problems. But then I was told that he made the statement that we didn't have any problem with that operation. I didn't have any problem with the operation that used to be there. My biggest problem is that smell, and it hasn't been there, but for the last, I'm gonna say no more than 3 months that I've noticed. I don't go past it every day because it's up the hill from me and I don't have a reason to go up there all the time. But something major's changed, and I don't know if it's trash. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter. It ain't gone. It needs to be. It's not fair to do that to the fellow that I sold a house to. I sold another house to the people up for me and for even more money. There's a nicer home than that. You shouldn't be doing anything to affect their values. You shouldn't, and their peace of mind. I mean, you don't want to smell that on your way home. You wouldn't. And anyway, that's my point.
Thank you. Mr. Tidd? Any other comments? Do you have anything that you wanted to say in response? I know that's a little bit out of context for the norm, but I know that.
I'd like to know what address you're talking about, I guess, and what location.
The fellow that I sold the house to is 1161 Old Whitestone Road. His name is Jason Norton. And I'll show you the text on my screen where he said, if nothing else, the EPD ought to have their hands slapped for letting whatever's going on there go on. I mean, those are the kinds of things he's thinking about. But trust me, that house has a wonderful view. It was worth $700,000. I didn't get to see it because I worked past dark every night. So it didn't really matter to me, but somebody bought it that could enjoy it. There's nobody would sit on that porch to enjoy that sunset. Nobody with that smell out there. I don't know what's causing it. I do know where it's coming from. And I didn't know about any of this stuff. Nobody came to me and told me that they were shutting y'all down. I didn't know about any of this stuff. I just knew there was a smell there that didn't used to be there. And then I found out why. And I guess that's what's brought this to a head. I don't know. Well, the fires, I don't know. The fire doesn't, obviously you don't want fires. I can't get a permit to burn 6 months a year, limbs. And I got a piece of 200 acres, 250 acres up there that's on fire. whatever, I don't get it. I don't get how that could even be, how can you get a permit to operate something that's often on fire, and yet I can't get one because I'm in a metro county? That's just, I don't get it. I don't understand. And look, I don't wish bad things to happen to you. I understand business. I don't want you not to be open, but you gotta understand somebody wanting to go home and not smell a rotten egg smell in their house. That's just not, it's not an accident though, by the way, that the old dump that had to be closed years ago over on on Jones Mountain Road, and that one are on the very north end of the county, so that they affect very small percentages of the population of the county. It's not an accident, and it just happens to be where I landed, and I didn't know, it wasn't open though when I bought my property.
Yeah.
That's just that's happened to me. And like I say, to be fair, the smell hadn't got to our restaurant yet. But I used to live in that house across the highway from you, and I promise you, I'd be wanting to shoot you, because that's a nasty smell. And it's just not fair. It's just not fair for somebody to live like that. But the address, 1161 Old Whitestone Road, that fella deserves candy at least at Christmas time. You know what I'm saying? Because he's really putting up with a lot.
And I think that comment, I mean, in the public comment section, is consistent with what the multiple ones were receiving prior to December 21st. I think that's one version, but it's a similar comment that I think that maybe that can kind of give you a sense of what led us to there, and then when the fires occurred as well. So I do want to say thank y'all for coming up. I appreciate you coming and being here. I know Ms. Hell's going to be reaching out. And like I say, in the very near future, we'll have a document coming to you that we can kind of explore back and forth. And appreciate you being willing to be here tonight, or today. I'm used to having night meetings, not daytime meetings. So with no other comments, I will move that we adjourn at 2:45. And thank you.
Thank you.